What's up, everyone? Andy from WagerTalk.com. We're going to be going over UFC 291, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Nathan is off this week, so I'm flying solo. We're going to get right into the fights. All plays can be found at WagerTalk.com, coming off a nice little 2-1 week. Hoping to extend the winning streak into this event. Let us get right into it. We're going to start here. Matthew Semelsberger versus Uros Medic. It's not really a fight that I am that interested in betting on a side. Semelsberger is minus 165 at the time of recording this. Medic is plus 140. I guess the plus money is a little bit enticing. I just don't see a lot of upside in either of these fighters. They both do a couple things well, but they definitely have some holes in their game. Semelsberger has he definitely has a ceiling of the caliber of fighter he can beat. His striking is okay, but he doesn't have great striking defense. His takedown defense isn't great. His last 3 wins are not against very good opponents. And, he just recently lost to Jeremiah Wells. And, he's also lost to Alex Morano. So, we look here. He beats Jake Matthews. I'm not sure how great that is. The AJ Fletcher and Snow win, not impressive at all. So, Semelsberger is just one of those guys where step up in competition and he's just not going to get it done. And on the other hand, Uros, I don't know what you can take away from beating Omar Morales. Then poor guy has to fight Jalen Turner. I mean, look at this. What kind of a weird uh Elon Cruz, Jalen Turner, than Omar Morales. One of these things is not like the other. So give him credit. He's 2-1, the one being to an absolute beast. But when you watch him against Omar Morales, it's Omar Morales who's not very good. So I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to bet this aside. I'm probably not, because I really like this fight to start round 2. Nathan and I love doing these fights to start round 2 parlays, and it was really good. Last week we were able to hit ours on Takedown Live, where we watch the fights live. So I think this is an absolute fight that you're going to throw in to start round 2 when those props come out later today. So let's move on to Miranda Maverick and Priscila Cachoeira. Here we go again with Miranda Maverick being a massive favorite. She's minus 325. Cachoeira is going to want this to be a stand-up striking battle at distance. Maverick's probably going to want to clinch, make this kind of a grind it up against the cage, and probably take her down on the ground. And the odds are telling you that the books think she's going to be able to do it. I don't know. Let's take a look at Miranda Maverick's losses here. I mean, she basically beats the fighter she should. She beat Shanna Young, Mazo. She beat Jillian Robertson. Of course, we have the insane Macy Barber, but step up in competition. She gets beat by Blanchfield, and then last time against Jasmine Jasudavicius, listen, she got dominated. I mean, it was just an absolute domination, and she was a favorite. And it's going to be really hard if you bet on Miranda Maverick last time to get yourself hyped up to do it again. So I'm not going to be doing this, even though I'm not a big fan of Cachoeira. I just don't think she's that great. She had a really nice knockout against Lipsky, who just stood there and took a beating. Miranda Maverick's not going to do that. Jiyeon Kim, that's not a great win. So it's kind of a stay away just because of the price. The price has put me out of this one. So I'm certainly not going to put Miranda Maverick in. I'm not going to put Miranda Maverick in any type of parlay. I might look at an over, but even then it's just a really bit risky. So I just don't think there's a whole lot of value betting wise. I think there's some other bets that are better and just have a little bit more value. So up next, Jake Matthews and Darrius Flowers. This one's kind of tough to handicap because Darrius Flowers fights just don't last that long. Jake Matthews is minus 185. Flowers is plus 150. So we're taking a look at Darrius Flowers. Listen, hasn't fought the best of competition. He went on Contender Series, gets a win really early on when Gogoladze gets hurt. I don't know if it came from the slam that Flowers put on him, or if he said, and you can kind of see just before the slam, it looks like he was hurt a little bit before that. But give him credit, he gets the win, and so then he gets to make his UFC debut here against Jake Matthews. So I mean, from what I can see from Flowers, he's got really good striking, very, very aggressive, loves to push forward, big knockout power. He can wrestle. So, Jake Matthews, when we look at Jake Matthews, here's kind of an odd one as well to look at because, okay, he loses against Sean Brady, and then he takes some time off. We don't see him until 2022 in June, and he comes out against Fiallo, and we're like, oh wow, he amazing striking. He totally worked on his striking. And then it's like, well, maybe just Fiallo's not that good, and Fiallo's been getting knocked out by everybody. And then he loses to Semelsberger, which I thought was a pretty bad loss. So I would expect some wrestling and grappling from Matthews here, and I think that's going to teach us a lot about Flowers. If Flowers really is UFC ready, it's just there's too many unknowns, especially on the Darrius Flowers side. I think it's going to be an exciting fight. Flowers is going to come out really strong in the first round, so it should be an exciting fight. I think it's just more of a kind of wait and see how good Darrius Flowers really is to see if we can bet on him moving forward. But betting wise, it's really tough. If anything, you sprinkle Darrius Flowers just because he's plus 150, and I'm just not that high on Jake Matthews. Up next, CJ Vergara and Vinicius Salvador. Talk about another fighter I'm not very high on, Vinicius Salvador. We thought he looked amazing on Contender Series when he knocked out Shannon Ross. That win doesn't look very impressive anymore. His UFC debut, I mean, it was so sloppy. Salvador's fight, it was just lack of fight IQ, very sloppy against Altamirano, and I was just like, I'm out on this guy. I don't want to ever bet on this guy because you don't know what you're going to get. I think he's got good tools. I don't know what's going on in his camp, but it was just a really, really bad look. However, I'm not real excited to bet on CJ Vergara, who's 2-2 in the UFC. His losses were to good competition, like really good competition, and his wins against not good. So this is another one. I believe that Vergara is going to win just because he's more organized. He's a lot more calm. He's not as like chaotic. But minus 170, this is just a fight between two not very good fighters. So CJ Vergara minus 170. I don't think I'm going to lay that kind of juice. So I'm gonna stay off a side here. I do think this is a great fight to start round two. All of Vergara's UFC fights have started round two. Salvador's lone UFC fight went the distance. So I think both of these guys are, they're UFC caliber with their tools and with their overall game. So I think it will kind of cancel each other out. I don't see an early finish in this one. Wouldn't surprise me if it went the distance, but I'm not going to pick a side in this one. I lean Vergara, but the minus 170 is just going to be way too expensive for me to get involved in. A wise man once told me never put CJ Vergara in your parlays. So moving on to Roman Kopylov and Claudio Ribiero. Kopylov is a big favorite, minus 250. Ribeiro's coming in at plus 210. And I just love Kopylov. This is my favorite pick on this card. Ribiero has a lot of weaknesses in his game, and Kopylov is just a fighter that's going to expose all of them. In my opinion, the biggest weakness for Claudio is his cardio. And Kopylov he just is constantly moving. His last two fights, just constantly moving, working a great jab, piecing up his opponents. And we saw Claudio Ribiero. He just gets tired, man. He doesn't have great movement. He's looking for a big KO shot. If he doesn't get it, he's in trouble. Abdul Alisson, he wore him down and KO'd him in the second round. And Ribiero beat Joseph Holmes, but Holmes is terrible. And Claudio was gassed. It didn't look great. Kopylov, we know, is just going to work the distance. He's going to jab. He's going to move. Listen, Ribiero is going to start breathing heavy probably in the first round. Kopylov's last opponent, Soriano, kind of reminds me of Ribiero. They're both strong. They're both powerful. They don't have great cardio. They don't have great movement. And Kopylov easily won against Soriano. I think it's a pretty easy game plan for Kopylov. I think he implements it, and it's another loss for Ribiero coming off the win against Joseph Holmes. But Roman Kopylov, I think, is going to be my favorite pick and my most confident pick on this card. Up next, Trevin Giles and Gabriel Bonfim. This is another one that I'm pretty confident in. Bonfim's massive 315 versus Trevin Giles. And if you want to do something if you can pull up their last fights and put them in like browser windows right next to each other and just play them, it's going to look like Gabriel Bonfim is moving at like 1.5 speed compared to Trevin Giles. This guy's a beast. He's got it all. His hand speed is ridiculous. Him and his brother, great boxing backgrounds. And then Bonfim just has the submission game. 14-0. He can finish with strikes, but he prefers submissions. So I think that's what he's going to do here. I mean, Giles almost got submitted by Preston Parsons in his last fight. He barely squeaked out a split decision win. Before that, he beat Louis Cosi, who's lost both of his UFC fights, and then he lost in Uriah Faber's A1 combat. So Giles not fighting great competition, and Giles has struggled with the bad competition. Bonfim wrapped up a submission in less than a minute in his UFC debut with a sick guillotine. But before that, against Munir Lazez, I mean, just the hand speed is just crazy. So I think the speed is going to overwhelm Giles pretty quick, and it wouldn't surprise me if Bonfim eventually gets him on the ground and works a submission. But I'm not going to be surprised if Bonfim gets a KO with just his pure boxing skills and his hand speed. So up next, Derrick Lewis and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. De Lima coming in at -175. I really think there's only one way to look at this fight, and it's just, what do you think of Derrick Lewis? If you think he's done, then you're betting de Lima, and you think the -175 is a gift. I mean, Lewis has not shown anything encouraging recently. 1-4 in his last 5. His win is over a fighter with the last name Dawkins, which is never an impressive victory. And, Spivak was able to he submitted Derrick Lewis in round 1. Lima is probably going to have a pretty similar plan in that he's going to push it forward. He's going to push Lewis up against the fence and try and tire him out. He's probably going to try and take him down. And, De Lima's probably going to do whatever he can to stay out of that big, one-shot knockout power with Derrick Lewis. But, here's the thing. De Lima, his last 7 losses, this guy's fought a lot. He's 21-8. His last 7 losses, 6 of them have been by submission, and the other by decision. He doesn't get knocked out. He's got a good chin. He's just a rough and tough, rugged fighter that likes to get in close and kind of stay out of those shots. So, like, if this is a guy that loses by submission, that's obviously not Derrick Lewis's game. So, I like De Lima in this one. I don't know if he's going to get on the ground and, drag out a decision, or if he can get on the ground and eventually, KO Lewis or submit him. But I just, if you think Derrick Lewis has something left in the gas tank, okay, maybe you take the +150. I don't. I think the end of the road is very, very near. Maybe it's this fight. So De Lima -175. Not sure I'm going to get to the window in this one because I don't like betting -175 on De Lima, but I'm certainly not going to be betting on Derrick Lewis, who's shown kind of nothing recently. So up next, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson versus Michel Pereira. Thompson's coming in -170, +145. This is a fight that I'm not interested in betting aside, but to start round 2, absolutely. Pereira has 7 straight fights that have started round 2. Thompson has 11 straight fights. We know Thompson uses that karate stance, keeps the distance. That will keep Michel away. And, several fights ago, going back, Pereira has really struggled with his cardio, but I think he's kind of fixed it, and it's by taking a more cautious approach, not going balls to the wall crazy in the first round. And we take a look at some of his more recent fights, and he's just a lot more under control with his body and his weapons, and he's not overwhelming himself and losing all of that energy. And Thompson's not a finisher. I think both of these guys are going to try and work their own jabs. Thompson's going to be working those kicks. It's a Stephen Thompson fight, so overs are kind of the only way that you're looking to go. I do think that there is value on Pereira. I'm not really sure I'm not laying -170 on Stephen Thompson because I think Pereira has unique striking. His offense this is the guy that did a flip in the middle of a fight to get on top, position. So I don't know if he throws out something that Thompson maybe isn't ready for. Pereira is certainly capable of that. If you're betting aside, I think the only way to bet it is to take the +145 on Pereira. But really, this is taking overs in this one, and this will absolutely be a part of the to start round 2 parlay. So Stephen Thompson, Michel Pereira, we're looking at overs in that one. Michael Chiesa and Kevin Holland. Holland is minus 145. Chiesa is coming in at plus 125. Listen, Holland fights can be a little bit tricky to handicap. Sometimes you don't know what you're going to get. I mean, his fight against Stephen Thompson, he just was like, I'm not going to wrestle, even though I know I have a huge advantage. I want to stand and, fight karate, go strike for strike with Thompson. It was his big advantage. He lost. He didn't seem to care. So he comes back with a win over Ponzinibbio in April, all by striking. I believe he has a couple of small advantages here against Chiesa, who we haven't seen since November of 2021. So Holland's going to have the reach advantage. I mean, those long legs and those long arms. I mean, he can keep the distance and kind of dictate the fight there. So I do think that's going to pay dividends for him. I also think he's got a little bit of the wrestling and jiu-jitsu advantage. We saw Chiesa struggle in that department against Sean Brady. Thought that was a great fight. Brady kind of got tired in the third round where Chiesa was able to kind of take advantage. But in rounds 1 and 2, Brady was able to control him. I wonder if we see a little bit more of that from Holland. We haven't seen a ton of that from him recently. But Chiesa's really good on the feet, man. I mean, Chiesa did a lot of damage to Brady in his last fight. So if Holland is finding that Chiesa can get through those long strikes of his, don't be surprised if Holland maybe goes in and tries to work takedown wrestling and maybe go for some kind of submission. So I just this is a stay away for me, though. I can't pull the trigger on Holland. I don't know what Chiesa's really been doing over the last year plus. I like both fighters. I think they're better bets on this card. If I had to pick a winner, I would take Kevin Holland. I think his small little advantages add up, and he wins a very close decision. But I won't be pulling the trigger on this one. If you have a sports book that has spreads when they come out, I think Chiesa like plus 3.5 would be a really, really good one. I could see this going to scorecards and being a really, really close one. So Michael Chiesa and Kevin Holland there. Next up, another big favorite, Bobby Green, minus 360 versus Tony Ferguson. This is kind of like Derrick Lewis. You think Ferguson is done? If you do, then Bobby Green's going to be in all of your parlays. If you think Ferguson still has skills left and a decent enough chin, then you're just ecstatic that you're going to get plus 280 on Tony Ferguson. So I know Ferguson's last fight was against Nate Diaz. Before that, he had lost 4 in a row to basically the best of the best. So I didn't really go back and look at those. I had not seen the Diaz fight in a while. So I went back and looked, and I just thought Ferguson looked old and slow. I really did. I was just like, man, this is just not the Ferguson that we're used to seeing. So after the first round against Diaz, Ferguson was like retreating. He was having to lunge into his punches. He just didn't seem to have a whole lot left. And Diaz was landing a lot of jabs. Ferguson was kind of a mess. That's what Bobby Green does. Does the jab, gets out of the way. If Bobby Green's takedown defense is great, so I don't think Ferguson has a path to victory. To get him on the ground, it's going to have to be on the feet. And with Bobby Green's jabs and reach, I just don't see how Ferguson gets in there. Here's the other interesting thing here. Bobby Green has a lot of motivation to get a win here. He lost 2 and then he had the no contest against Jared Gordon. So he's going to want to get back into the win column. So, I mean, if Bobby Green was coming off of a few wins, you might say, I might take the foot off the gas in this fight. I don't think he does. I don't think he can afford to, play it cautious and then accidentally, get hit hard on the chin, which could change the course of the fight or even just a round. So I think he comes in pretty focused and just I'm in the camp that Tony Ferguson's probably about done. If he takes a beating in this one, it might be time to mention the R word for Tony Ferguson. So there's Bobby Green and Tony Ferguson almost getting there. And all of our official plays can be found on WagerTalk.com. All of our official plays for this upcoming fight event. And don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Bump Sports. Let's take a look at the co-main event. Jan Blachowicz and Alex Herrera. Here's my biggest problem trying to handicap this fight is I have no idea what Alex's mindset and motivation is for this fight. He was brought into UFC to beat Israel Adesanya. He does that. And then he gets KO'd by Izzy, and I don't know what his mindset is. Was that like the kind of loss where he goes into a funk and he's depressed and like, okay, what's my next move? Or is he like, oh, I'm more hungry and motivated than ever. I want to get back into the win column. I want to get back into the title conversation. So for that reason, I'm going to stay away. I mean, the odds couldn't be closer. -120 for Jan and -110 for Alex. If I'm having to handicap this fight, listen, we know Jan is battle tested. He has really, really nice leg kicks that if he gets those working, they're brutal and they can really hurt Pereira. But I think he just kind of needs his opponent to stand in front of him to absorb those. And we've seen him get hit. Listen, in Jan's fight against Rakic was doing damage with strikes against him, especially in round 1. In round 2, Rakic gets him down and keeps him down on the ground. And I thought Rakic was winning the fight. Rakic suffers a knee injury. Jan gets out of there with a win. And then Ankalaev fight, it's a draw. I mean, we're looking at, Jan lost to Glover Teixeira before that. There's a chance that Jan could have lost 3 fights in a row. Instead, he loses to Glover, gets a win on the injury, and then gets a draw against Ankalaev. So, if Alex Pereira is motivated and he's coming in with the full arsenal, I think he does a lot of damage to Jan, who just doesn't have great movement on the feet. I think Jan will end up kind of, maybe trying to get a takedown, but Pereira's so big. I don't know what the plan of attack is going to be for Jan, because I think in the last couple fights he just looked a little bit slower than I remember, and I think Pereira's got him on the feet here if he can stay away from the leg kicks. It's just there's no way I'm playing it because I just don't know what we're getting from Alex Pereira. So stay away from me. I don't even know what to do with the total, with the length. I don't know whether to take unders, overs in this one. So this one will be an interesting fight to watch, but pretty tough to bet. And for the main event, Dustin Poirier versus Justin Gaethje. Poirier's -150, Gaethje's +130. Betting wise, I think the only way that you can bet this is the underdog. I think this could be just a really close fight, and it's going to turn into a war. I loved Gaethje's fight against Fiziev. I thought he was just fantastic. He was methodical with his striking. It opened it up, going forward, where he could, unleash some really nice combos on Fiziev. I thought it was I thought it was fantastic. The Chandler fight, the last fight, Chandler versus Poirier, I think there was a couple moments that Gaethje could really learn from. Like when Chandler really pushed forward and pushed Poirier up against the fence, he did a lot of damage. Now, Chandler ended up gassing himself out, but, when he pushed Poirier up against the fence, he was able to unload on strikes. And then in round 2, we see him get the takedown. He almost gets the choke. It wasn't quite close to being in there, but it was still a really, really good look for Chandler and a bad look for Poirier. Poirier then, pours it on in round 3. But, when we're looking at Poirier, I guess I could poke a couple holes in his record. I mean, Chandler, it was a really close fight. He gets the win, but that round 2, man, I thought there were moments that he was going to get finished. So he loses then to Charles Oliveira. Before that, he beats Conor McGregor twice. I mean, let's face it, that Conor McGregor that Poirier fought was way different fighter than prime Conor McGregor. So, if I wanted to poke holes in Poirier's game, that's what it is. I do think the overs could be a really nice play in this one, especially if Gaethje fights like he did with Fiziev. I think you're going to see low volume from both of these guys. They respect each other a ton. And I think round 1 is just going to be a slow feel out process. They're going to try and get the others' timing down. So if you're looking to add another piece to start round 2, this would be one. With as deadly as these guys are with their striking, to go the distance would be kind of hard, but maybe over 1.5, maybe over 2.5. We know both these guys are tough as nails, so finishing each other is just going to be really, really tough. I'm just looking at the numbers, the odds on this one, and betting that because I think it's a toss-up. So if I can get +130 on Gaethje, I would say take him. if the odds were flipped, I would say then you take the plus 130 on Poirier. So I don't have a strong conviction one way or the other. I guess I would just lean Gaethje because I just thought his patience and the way he controlled everything on the feet was really impressive. So give me Gaethje at plus 130 as a lean, but really I like the overs in this one. So for kind of recapping these fights, go back to the page here. Semelsberger and Medic. I like to start round 2. Don't really have a very strong play in that one. The value's in the dog or that one on that one. Miranda, Maverick, and Priscila, Cachoeira, complete stay away. No way I'm laying minus 325 on Miranda, Maverick. Jake Matthews and Darrius Flowers. The value's on the dog in this one, plus 150. It's just not good. It's not good enough to bet because we just haven't seen enough of Flowers, and not a big fan of Jake Matthews. CJ Vergara and Vinicius Salvador, just stay away from this one. We have much better places to put our money in that one. I do like that one to start round 2. Kopylov and Ribiero, my favorite fight pick of the night. I love what Kopylov is going to be able to do on the feet. He's going to tire out Ribiero and use those jabs to control the fight. Trevin, Giles, and Bonfim. I think this is a showcase fight for Bonfim. I think he finishes Giles. Hand speed and the submission game is going to be too much for Giles, who's going to be overwhelmed. Derrick Lewis and Marcos Rogerio de Lima. I am in the camp that Derrick Lewis is probably done, so I lean de Lima. Minus 175 is a steep price, but I'm certainly not going to play Derrick Lewis. Stephen Thompson and Michel Pereira. I'm taking this one to start round 2. It's a Stephen Thompson fight. You're looking at the overs there. Not really a strong opinion on the side here. I guess I would lean plus 145 with Pereira, as there's a nice value in that. Chiesa and Holland. It's kind of a just overall pass for me. I think it's a fun, interesting fight. Slightly into Holland, but I'm not laying minus 145. Tony Ferguson, Bobby Green. Really steep price as Bobby Green's minus 360. My guess is this keeps moving up and probably gets over 400 by fight time. I think Tony Ferguson's probably done, and Green's got the jabs and the boxing to piece up Tony Ferguson. I'm not sure what Ferguson's path to victory is here. Jan Blachowicz and Alex Ferreira, complete stay away. Don't know what the mentality and motivation for Alex is going to be in this one. And then the main event, I do like overs. Maybe this one to start round 1, maybe over 1.5, or to start round 2. Slight lean to Gaethje just because I'm getting plus 130 on it. Not a real strong pick in the main event, but certainly going to be fun to watch. So thanks for joining us, everybody. Official plays on WagerTalk.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. Good luck on your bets, and let's have another profitable fight.